Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is Refuge from Narcissism, and this refugee video is sponsored by contribution from Blue Columbine, and here's her story. Hello, Ollie. You made a video for me called Narcissist Recording You're Not Allowed to Call Them on Their Lies. I would like to provide some context and explain the buildup and fallout surrounding that recording. In order to tell the story properly, we have to go back years before the recording. I was living in a 400 square foot studio apartment that was built on top of a garage. I was working two jobs and had side jobs on top of that. Even with all that, money was very tight. The two jobs barely covered my main bills and gas, so the side jobs helped me with the necessities like food, as well as things like soap or clothing when I needed it. I did have a car payment as well, 500 a month for a 15-year-old Subaru with a salvage title. This was made this was to be made preferably in cash because of tax reasons. Many times when I would go give them money, I would also do some yard work on the property. I mean, I'm assuming you mean your father, who you made all the memes about, your parents. You made the memes about their about their lake house and their boat and all that. I guess I felt indebted to them. It was something I always used to do growing up and just continue doing anytime I would go over there. If I could have made $200 or $300 a month payments instead, it would have not put so much stress and strain on me. I knew friends that were paying smaller payment for much newer cars. It also would have been cool to be able to work off some of it with the hours I put in when I was there. Of course, he really didn't care what was best for me. He just wanted the money back fast so he could, years later, after I paid it off, have it transferred into my name, go on acting like a saint and telling everyone he bought me a car. Oh, I've talked about that. How my parents saddled me with a bullshit car payment that I didn't ask for. Okay, it was just about being able to control you, to try to keep you broke. Anyways, I did not know this before moving in, and I had no heat in the apartment, and it was poorly insulated, so winter was very cold. I can't complain too much though, since where I live doesn't get too freezing, and some people have to go without heat in much colder climates. I would heat the apartment with the oven for a while, and eventually brought a small plug-in heater. I asked the landlords many times about getting it fixed, but they never did it while I was there. Finally, they had a repairman come in, and without proper 24 hours notice, he was looking for parts, and then he can't get parts because they don't make them anymore since the unit was so old. So the whole thing had to be replaced. This was all drawn out over many months. I wasn't really aware of many of my tenant rights at the times. So far, we were on good terms. I always paid rent on time, if not early, and even landscaped a strip of dirt along the pool and with drought tolerant plants and some rocks I got from the mountains. One month I had three clients from side jobs not paying me for the work I had done. I know now this was my mistake, but I didn't take any money in advance and actually spent some of my own money on materials for jobs, so I was in the hole. I was all too trusting and figured since they were well off doctors and lawyers with nice houses and cars, they'll be good for it. Don't ever think that. And I learned that. Let me tell you something. I learned that because with the windows and going to these houses that I went to, okay, how cheap some of them were and how some of them tried to get out of paying. And, and then some of them where I went into their pantries and they had bags from food banks where they were going to food banks and getting free food, okay, with Porsches and Mercedes and Lexuses in their fucking driveway. Certain people were doing that. They all had the same common denominator with people with money. Of people with money, same common denominator. We're all getting, every time I would find those food bank bags, okay? Every time I would find those food bank bags in their fully stocked pantries that you walk into, and it's just the pantry is like half the size of this living room, okay? Just wall to wall food and food pantry bags. There's a common denominator to every one of those. You can guess which one that is. As they have Porsches and Mercedes and Lexuses in their driveways, in their garages, in their air-conditioned garages. So don't think because you're working on a nice house and people with money that they're generous with their money all the time. They're not. They're some of the cheapest people you'll ever find. I would try to collect, but I could never reach them or they would never be home. The trick with the window cleaning is this is what you just, they know when you were just about done. They'd ask you, "You almost done?" Like, yeah, 20 minutes, half hour. And boom, every time the woman would come running out in oh, I got to meet my I got a tennis thing. Well, where you go? Bill me. We don't bill. Bill me. The first subcontractor would do that. They just drop. Wow. Like every time. Like they don't want to pay a lot of the time. It's amazing. It's amazing how some people with money just don't want to pay. Last time I went to one of the jobs for a lawyer's house, I went to use the restroom inside. And when I passed the kitchen, there was a massive ball of Coke on a tray. I tried to collect payment that day, and as I usually try to get paid at the end of the day for side jobs, but his wife told me he was really busy working on a big case and didn't want to be interrupted. I was I was very bad at being assertive at the time, and it took me a long time to unlearn how my parents programmed me to be agreeable and not bother, a sitting duck, basically. I figured we'd get in touch and he'd get mad at me the money soon enough and he'd get me the money soon enough, but I just wasn't able to reach him after that. You should call him at his goddamn law office. See, that's when like I don't care. Like, really? So is he putting off getting paid on this big case he's working on? See, this is what they do. This is what some people with money like to do because they have money and they know you don't. They fuck with you. Okay, sue me. What are you gonna do? Sue me. You got no money. You're gonna come after me in small claim. Good luck. Probably a common denominator on that one too. That's the danger of doing work under the table without a business license. When it's hard to collect, you don't have the same protections. When I saw my landlord, I let him know what was going on, said I could get the rent in full on the 7th, or I could pay some now and some later. He said it wasn't going to be a problem and I could just pay it full on the 7th. So the first comes, goes, the second, the third, and I come home to a pink eviction notice on my door. I tried calling them and talking to them, and they said I had 3 days from that day. The third day would make it the 6th to pay in full, or else they were going to start the process of evicting me. I explained to them I got paid on the 5th, and the banks hold my check for 2 days, so the earliest I could have it is this by the 7th, as I told them before. The wife went on this whole thing about how I never communicated that and it's not their problem anyways, and went on this BS sob story about how they have to pay their mortgage and depend on my rent coming in on time to pay their bills, acting all dramatic and superior like we can lose our house if we don't pay. What makes you think you don't have to pay? You're not going to lose your house in a day. You're not. And welcome to the real world. This all struck me as odd because in the house there was a family consisting of 50 to 60 something couple. My landlord's, the husband was retired and the wife still worked. Well, as an adult daughter who was maybe 5 or 6 years older than me, she also had two kids living in the home. One was 18, the other one was a toddler. Two adults working, the mother and daughter with good paying 9 to 5 Monday through Friday government jobs. The 18-year-old grandson didn't work. He was just big into gaming. I would chat with the family when I did work out back by the pool, so we knew a bit about each other. I found it odd that this family, who seemed very well off, drove newer cars, shared a home they had been paying off for years. I had ever met before I had ever met them, even went and had solar installed that summer on the roof top of my flat, they were pretending that they depended on me, a single rent burdened individual living hand to mouth who had no family support and renting month to month. This is your mistake. You think because people have money, they're not going to try to screw you. They're the first ones to try to screw you. The first ones to try to screw you are people with money because they know they can get away with it. Because it costs money to sue people. It takes time that they know you don't have. And is the time going to be worth the entire situation anyway? Usually not. And that's why they do it. Now, if they were truly in that situation of living paycheck to paycheck, I would understand. I would have gotten a payday loan or asked for an advance on my check or something to be sure to get it on time for them. But that's why I talked to them. And he said it was okay because they really didn't need it and they were pretending and overreacting, is my guess. And when I mentioned that conversation to them, they kept denying that I ever had the conversation with him. It was in person. I spoke to him when I saw him outside in the drive by the garage. So now it was my word against theirs. I did actually talk to my boss the next day about possibly asking for an advance, and he said that's ridiculous. It's just one more day. So I waited. On the 7th, I met with them and they told me they were not going to renew my lease, and I had till the end of the month. It was a month-to-month lease. I asked if they could just use my deposit as my last month rent, and they said no. They would go through an eviction, and I'd have that on my record if I didn't give them a check right then. In good faith, I gave them my check. They said I'd get all my deposit money back so long as I leave on time and don't leave it all trashed. I was super uncomfortable how they went on and on talking down to me. I remember feeling powerless trying to plead with them, and they would not budge. When I mentioned the heater was still not working, it was March by then, they became overly defensive and raised their voices at me and were speaking to me very aggressively. It was so unprofessional. I was trying with all my power to hold back my tears, but I couldn't fight it, and I started crying right there in front of them. I think I was triggered and reminded of when my parents would gang up on me. I was so embarrassed for crying and we were not getting anywhere, so I just left. I felt so defeated. I had been already looking for a new place before this whole ordeal happened. It was, after all, a shoebox apartment with no heat, and it was pretty expensive. I couldn't find very much, and when I went to the real property management companies and apartment complexes, I wasn't able to qualify because I had not in the past rented from a property management company or have the credit. I had not yet built credit. My dad convinced me it would be financial suicide to put anything on credit or open a credit card. Right, because your father did what my parents did, left you ignorant to how the world works and left you at the mercy of fucking predators. Your parents have money. Don't trust people with money. You can't trust people with money. They're the first ones to screw you. The first ones to screw you. There was just so much I did not know and was not prepared for. I had rented before, but it was always renting rooms privately and nothing was super long term. When I had talked to my parents about what was going on, seeking advice or assistance, they had this attitude: "You're an adult now, figure it out." This wasn't the first time and it wasn't the last. Another example: I had previously had an issue renting a single room in an older house that was built in the 20s. It had black mold growing in some areas in the kitchen and bathroom. The roof sagged in the room I was in, and there was a pit bull that would lay in the backyard all day and come in all dirty. It was just a dirt lot, and the girl there never picked up his poop, and he was a digger. So the dirt wasn't compacted, and instead was all this fine dust dirt that would pick up easily in the wind. The swamp cooler was right there by the dirt in the back, so it would blow all that dog shit infused dust inside. I was constantly vacuuming and wiping down, but still my throat got all swollen and I became sick to the point I lost my voice and was sent home from work, where it only got worse from being there. I wanted to get into a better rental place, but I couldn't qualify without a cosigner. I got the good old figure it out back then, too. This was going to be a consistent pattern with my parents, anyways. I'm about to go on a rant here, just bear with me, it's all relevant. The only thing I could find that I was able, the only thing I could find that I was able to find was small month to month rooms that had crazy strict rules. At the time, I didn't know how scarce housing was going to become, and I thought I could find something reasonable. I didn't want to pay a large sum of money every month to live in a child sized room and be treated like a child. I get sober living arrangements, and I understand not wanting smoking inside or heavy drinking. In my opinion, if someone prefers not to have that in their home, they should say prefer non drinker, non smoker. Not absolutely no smoking or drinking, Christian household, no couples, no kids, no pets, must work full time, light cooking only, no guests, no visitors, vegetarian, vegans only, no longer than 15-minute showers, no pictures on the wall, don't attach anything to the bars. Commissary will be on Thursday. If you don't turn in your bubble sheets by Tuesday, you will not get any. I turn I turn that into a jail joke, but it's pretty much what it feels like. Like I do not need to become a vegan nun just to rent room. Like, do I need to become a vegan nun just to rent rooms these days? I don't think I'd feel comfortable paying to live with someone who is so comfortable running a totalitarian dictatorship from their home. Even if I'm already Christian, single, and don't have many visitors, it's more about trust and freedom and mutual respect. Private landlords act like the only thing you're paying for is a place to sleep, not a home to base your life from. Much like narcissists, many are, they have a tendency to be so intolerant of other people's lives, even though they are benefiting from you being there. You know, there was a house on my block growing up that would rent a room, no food, no fun, no food, no friends, no TV allowed. And my mother, and that's where my parents, well, you go live there, you go live there, yeah, there you go. Like that's what they want. They love that shit. And that's exactly the type of place your parents wanted you to be in. Even though they're benefiting from you being there, especially now when you consider how few rentals there are and the competition and lack of options. It's discriminatory to have so many odd rules for a person to even be considered. An ad for housing is only supposed to describe the property itself and not the ideal tenant. If they want to make sure they can find somebody that fits their criteria, they should be limited to family, friends, someone from church, someone they knew or met or organically by word of mouth that they already know fits their lifestyle. To publicly advertise and list a place for rent with discriminatory requirements is unrealistic, unethical, and illegal. By law, a landlord can't discriminate for reasons of race, color, religion, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, familial status, or disability. This exempts, however, owner occupied buildings and up to three single family homes sold or rented by the owner without the use of an agent. But when it comes to advertisement for housing, the laws on discrimination even apply if the property is exempt. Section 3604C of the Fair Housing Act. Of course, I did not know these laws at the time, but it's something that has never sat right with me the way many housing ads are listed with unrealistic expectations of the prospective tenants. Meanwhile, the place is usually a dump, anyways. It always kind of reminds me of when you see screenshots of chicks on dating apps who are average at best and have this list on their profile of what they expect in a partner, and it's totally unrealistic. A lot of these older people who live alone are looking to rent out a room because they're divorced and or kids ran away and or they never married. And I think for many it's because they don't know how to get along with people. My point in going in on a rant about housing is to show how these landlords, many of them are boomers, will use land, home, property ownership to try to control others. It's not even fully about the money or even about the rules. It's about you obeying and being subservient. Right. It's about them being a god. It's about them being the lord of their lands, a landlord. And believe me, the boomer landlord takes the lord part of it very seriously. Very serious. Like they think a deity, a lord, I lord over you. The boomer landlord only takes the lord part of the word as the most serious part. They love it because it makes them feel like they own you. It's just a power trip. Many of them are empty nesters and miss having kids at home to constantly harass and control. I'm saying this so explicitly because it's so pervasive in these types of situations. When they know you can't get approved by a legit property management company and know you need somewhere to live, they could take that leverage to the extreme. The most infuriating part is how, in doing so, they aren't even abiding by the laws themselves because the rules don't apply to them. Now to think about how at my age I'm renting rooms being treated like my parents did from some other boomer who is financially gaining off me. Now I think about how and when they were my age, they were making an affordable house payment and not renting, and many had young families. They will tell you we worked hard for what we got. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sure you did. Okay, let's talk about that. They had stable jobs that actually translated into careers with promotions and benefits and had retirement funds and pensions that propped up these financial institutions such as BlackRock that ended up having a large hand in what happened to the housing and rental market, jacking up prices, jacking the prices way up so all these baby boomers can get a good return on their investment as well as a healthy cut for the institutions. And also you could buy a house on a cashier as a cashier in a supermarket back then. You could buy a house with just a low rate blue collar job. Remember Married with Children? Al Bundy, he hated his job. He had the worst job in the country as a women's shoe salesman. Yet his wife didn't work. He had a 3-bedroom house, 2 stories with yard and property and all that. Me and Charlene started watching episodes because from of this show called Soap, which was like Billy Crystal's first show back in like the late 70s, early 80s. And it was like a story of 2 families, 2 sisters. One was super rich, one was supposedly super poor. The poor one lived in a freaking house that would probably be worth $750,000 today. And that was considered poor with a blue collar job. This is how good boomers had it. They gave these institutions a huge lump sums of money so they had power to basically stack the deck and turn whole generations going forward into their cash cows and turning and robbing their futures. That's, in my opinion, why many of us young people are not starting families on our own because of housing and the economy. Yeah, you can't afford it. Who can afford it? You can't afford it anymore. That's why they need to gaslight us into thinking they had it just as hard, and that we're just a bunch of snowflakes who can't take personal responsibility. The baby boomers stole from their children every chance they had and then turned around and pretended that they did everything for us and will call us spoiled and entitled when we're legit struggling and asking for help. How much double dipping is going on here? And they will tell you to just figure it out like we did. Like as if they had like as if they can't see the unfair advantage. You can't save to buy a house when you need 2 jobs just to make rent. A house is a sanctuary, a place to live, the family home. I grew the family home I grew up in felt more like it was its own country with its own laws and its own court, and you're on trial for life, right? With a Lord King in charge. Boomers love being the landlord because then they get to be the Lord. The only part of landlord the boomer understands is the Lord. I couldn't wait until I was out from under that crushing weight of untamed, unchecked power and control just to relive it over and over while paying for it, when those earnings should have been going into my future just like they were able to do when they were figuring it out. This is where I see what's going on individually with narcissists in my life. It's just a microcosm, and the same thing is playing out in a larger scale of society. This is long already, so I'll end it here from now. I'll be sending my story in multiple parts. This is still only just the beginning. Sorry for the length. I will try to get the next part as soon that I can keep this going. All the best, Blue Columbine. Well, not much more to say after that. The boomer loves the word landlord because they get to be the Lord. We know what they did. We know their history. They know how to look down their back at you. Okay. And understand your parents revel that you're in this position. My parents revel that I'm in this position. Okay. As they have sucked up and stolen all the wealth from most of society for themselves. And they still clutch on to power with their fucking nails like this until the day they die. That's them. That's the boomer. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much for your contribution and story. Another story, Blue Columbine. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, something you'd like me to expose, you'd like to set up a Skype phone call, have a private video made, you'd like to sponsor a video like this with someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you guys. Without you, all of this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with either the Cash App, Zelle, or PayPal, and email links in the description box below. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been Refuge from Narcissism. Take care, everyone.